Day of the forum. To host us today, we will have my dear friend, Bárbara Pinheiro, a postdoc researcher at Federal University of São Paulo, Executive Secretary member at the Women's League for the Ocean, member of the National Ocean Decade Committee of Brazil, and the Black woman in ecology, evolution, marine science, or as to say, a mermaid, a scientist, and a Jedi. They're all yours.
Bom dia, Salvador! Thank you, everybody, to be here. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Pinho, for inviting me for this very prestigious position here. I'm really happy to be here. And I have a task to highlight for you guys first what was the take-home message that we had from yesterday. Like, personally, for me, I think something that I will never forget was our muse, the secretariat there, putting everybody to dance last night. It was amazing. Thank you for that. And also the amazing food. But we do have, where is the, okay. It's not working. So I can explain first, like, why I call myself mermaid, a scientist, and a Jedi. It's just because, like, Jedi for me is when you fight for justice, equity, diversion, and inclusion in marine science. I wish I could be also like a Jedi from the movies, but I'm happy with this task that I have now. It's working? Oh. All right. So yesterday we had a really powerful day, right? And we focus on transforming ocean science into collaborative actions, promoting integration across generations and regions from the Antarctic to Arctic, because I prefer going the opposite direction. Anyways, so in the morning sessions, all the opening and welcoming talks that we had, the central message was that the ocean, it's a single system and its sustainability requires shared responsibility and international collaboration. That's why we are here, right? But like, I was really touched when I saw lots of people saying that Brazil is really like important and it's taking its role of science and as a driving force for evidence-based policy decisions. I was really proud also. And what to say about the keynotes, like, I personally, like Professor Zelinda, it's my idol. And it was really touching for me to see a woman of 91 years old coming here and highlights all her work, especially here in the state of Bahia. So it was amazing. But it was also incredible to see again Professor Marinez, because we were together in the COP30 and to show like her presentation about like the multi-realm always bring us this aspect of really like we need to act together, we need collective effort. So it was a great message for us to start our day here as well. And what to say about ocean literacy and engagement, right? Like, if you guys don't know, my supervisor is Professor Christopher Lett, so yeah. Ocean literacy is something really dear to my heart, really moves me. And it was discussed that the ocean literacy is essential for translated scientific knowledge into social and political actions. It was highlighted the priorities in mapping to include local values in marine spatial planning, the intergovernmental program to empower the ECOPs, and the integration of traditional and indigenous knowledge, such as the Canada shows us like the two IC approach. It was really amazing. And the last season, or the last session in the morning was to connect the policies. So it was really emotional to see the image from the Antarctic. Thank you, Ronaldo, for that. But the session highlighted what happened in the poles doesn't stay in the poles, which accelerate ice melting, affect sea levels, and global ocean circulation. So the main message was that the need for a systemic and holistic view connecting polar research to local coastal impacts. And then we had this amazing break, amazing food, so thank you for the organizers for that. And in the afternoon, we discussed the future of AAORIA. It was amazing. The alliance was described as being at a strategic turning point, evolving from an activity-focused forum to a result-oriented delivery. We look for the products forum. And the highlight was the exploration of a all-Atlantic joint call. The fund, we also need lots of funds to integrate research and topics such as ocean observation and biodiversity. We also had the Blue Frontiers and Ocean Technology. It was amazing to see the debate and the image with all the technology that we can see here in this house that is hosting us. It was amazing. We saw lots of images from IOVs, from gliders. We listened about local sensors. And the main message was the pursuit of technology sovereignty and equity, ensuring that nations with fewer resources are not left behind. This is really important for us. It was really interesting to have specifically presentations from the underwater robotics from here, from CIMATEC, was something that caught us attention. And we also had new proposal activity areas, like researchers proposed expanding their licensed regions in several areas, such as the use of DNA, eDNA, to identify unknown species, food webs, and modeling to predict climate impacts, and the creation of an international network of mesocosms for large-scale experiments. And we also had, like something that really caught my attention was the blue economy and the food for the ocean. It's really important to talk about that. This final session addressed food security, highlighted the resilience of aquatic systems, and really, like, these systems can provide nutrition and jobs for in the future, now and in the future. And the message also include the challenge of increasing fish consumption in Brazil, but this was, I want to try to make a joke, because especially in the south of Brazil, the Professor Luis, he's from the state that is well known for the churrascos, all these barbecue areas, but I'm from the coast, so we kind of don't agree. But anyways, and at the end, we had the closing message of the day, and that we need to prepare our luggage to go to Galway Island in October. That were the main message for the day. And with the help of the technology, I made this pathway, and I can share with you guys later on the WhatsApp group. So let's run the show now, okay? So our first session will be our first session proves that age is just a number, and that the future of ocean science is in excellent hands. This is going to be an ECOP-led session. That's early career professionals that are here since the summer schools. So few days now, they might be already have like a lot of dende in their blood. So let's pay attention on that. And I wanted to invite to the floor Denise Vuro. She's going to be our moderator today, and she's a PhD researcher at Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany, specializing in Arctic marine environmental system and the development of geospatial workflows to map coastal erosion, and harmonize bathymetry data for policy support. So please come to the floor. Dennis.
So first of all, thank you to Barbara for this dynamic opening. And once again, bon dia, everyone, and good morning. So welcome to the ECOP-led session on knowledge gaps of ocean science in the Atlantic. So it's a real pleasure to be here in Salvador, bringing together perspective from across the Atlantic. And when we talk about the knowledge gaps, we often think of missing data. But as this session highlights, the challenge is broader. It's not only about what we don't know, it's also about how fragmented the knowledge can be and how inaccessible data remains. And often how science, technology, and community knowledge can still operate in parallel rather than together. And from my own work in Arctic coastal systems, I've seen how even when data exists, integrating it across formats, time periods, and disciplines is one of the biggest challenges we face. And this is not unique to the Arctic. It's a shared reality across ocean regions, including here in Atlantic. So today, this session brings together different perspectives from fisheries science to community-led data and biodiversity mapping, and to physical oceanography, as well as robotics and AI. So to explore not just where the gaps are, but how can we bridge them, right? So our goal is simple, to move from identifying gaps as well as to understanding connections and ultimately toward actionable solutions to have more resilient coastal systems. So let's dive in. And yeah, we have a fantastic group of panelists representing from different regions and expertise across the Atlantic. And please help me welcome from Ghana, Peter Teye Busumbra, working on community-led biodiversity mapping across Africa. Please, Peter. Next, we have Joanna Klein from France, ephemer, and on marine geophysics, I'm sorry. And then we have our dear colleague from Brazil. Sorry, I'm so bad at names. We have Raquel Oliveira. And she is joining. I'm so sorry. We have a bit of improv this morning, and I want to really mention that, yes. Yes, Raquel, I'm sorry. Is it INPO? Yeah, Dr. Raquel Oliveira. She is working as a science and innovation advisor at INPO. So we will have a lot of improv today, and I really request your patience with me. Thank you. And then last but not least, we have João Vitor Mendes working on marine robotics and AI here at SENAI CIMATEC. Please, Vitor. So thank you so much again. I just want to highlight once again that, technical issues may happen, but we have very energetic panelists with us today, helping to make sure that everyone has some takeaway from this session. And again, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be here. So let's start with the first round of the questions. And before doing that, I would love to introduce our first panelist, again, Mr. Peter Teye Busumbra from Ghana, founder of Ocean Rock Base and lead of the African Ocean Biodiversity Atlas. awarded the Ocean Tribute 2024. His work focuses on community-led mobile technology to map marine biodiversity across 20 African countries. So to maybe start, I would like to focus on data access that we kept talking about, right? Which is really the foundation of everything we do in ocean science. Because even the best models or tools depend on whether data is available and who has access to it. So my question would be, how do we integrate local ecological knowledge into global scientific frameworks, maybe to fill those gaps? And with that, I will give floor to Peter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. It's a very important one, especially when we talk about closing the ocean data gaps in a meaningful and inclusive way. I believe the first step is to rethink about how we refine and value local ecological knowledge. In many global scientific conversations, local knowledge is often referenced as informal. But from our experience from Africa and mapping fisheries and biodiversity, our experience clearly shows that our perspective is accurate. Local indigenous knowledge is actually a result of a long-term, continuous conservation of the ocean. For generations, coastal communities and fishermen have developed a deep understanding of fish migration patterns, seasonal cycles, and environment changes through daily interaction with marine ecosystems. This challenge The challenge, therefore, is not that the language does not exist. The real challenge is that the knowledge has not been properly captured, structured, and integrated into scientific systems that can be used at national and global levels. In our work at the African Ocean Biodiversity Atlas, which are currently made up of over 20 African countries, with the Atlantic countries and then the non-Atlantic countries, we approach this challenge by focusing rather on translating this rather than extraction. We ask how we convert what people already know and what people already have into data that can be used into scientific frameworks. To do this, we have a simple and accessible tools, such as mobile applications, which we developed in Africa, low-cost technologies also we developed in Africa, and GPS-enabled devices that allows local fishermen to document fisheries and blue carbon. They are able to document what they catch, where they catch it, when they catch it, and what changes they observe in the environment. By doing this, we transform the local knowledge into a standardized georeference with global scientific systems. This is a critical step because the knowledge was previously invisible, but now accessible to the global society. However, integration does not end at data collection. It's equally important to ensure that the data aligns with global scientific frameworks. That means that standardized formats, ensuring and making the data accessible to researchers, policymakers, and international organizations. So when these conditions are met, locally generated data can be fed into global databases such as GBIF and OBIS. Ocean data monitoring systems and climate models can help in filling the data gaps. At the same time, we recognize that this process is not a technical one, but it's more of a social project. If these communities are only seen as a source of data, the system will not be sustainable. Instead, we adopt a co-creation approach where communities are active participants in the entire process. So that's just a framework of how our biodiversity data actually works. So we have the Fisheries Atlas that we mostly document fisheries across Africa, mostly led by local communities. We have the Blue Carbon Initiative, where it contains most of all the blue carbon, such as seagrass, seaweed, and mangroves. Also documented in georeference, which is a fisher-led initiative. And we also have MPAs. The MPAs are mostly like locally led. So it's a locally led, locally managed by the communities and local government. So at each of our project sites, mostly in most of the African countries, we make sure the government or the local government, the assemblymen, and then the local chiefs mostly maintains the MPAs. And we also have data sharing platform, which is mostly with the local fishermen. So the local fishermen can communicate with each other through the platform, ask questions they needed. And then if they need any help or they want any upgrade to our technologies, which is co-created with them, they mostly give us informations, and then we help them with that. And we also have species discoveries, where most of the species we mostly get, it's not all of them that they are fisheries and blue carbon, ecosystems. So any species that is not fisheries or blue carbon, what we actually do is that we keep it at that site where it contains all of them. Like any species that is not like fisheries or blue carbon is currently kept there. And then the project is already endorsed by the UN Ocean Decade under the Sustainable Ocean Program led by the UNESCO IOC. So most of these local fishermen don't know what's happening in this global space, like what's the UN Ocean Decade is about, even what's even the All Atlantic all about. Like most of them don't even know. Like G20, like UNOC, none of them know. So we're also trying to bridge the gap where we make sure most of them also have access to know what is actually happening. Because we feel like they are the ones that they are mostly facing these issues, these coastal erosions and all these issues, but they are mostly not represented when it comes to these spaces. So in a way, we try our best of letting them mostly use our platform to know most of these informations at the global space. So when people see the knowledge that is led to tangible impact, it helps build trust and strengthen the participation. So this intends improve the quality and consistency of the data being collected, since they are part of the whole co-design process. If you want to integrate local and ecological knowledge into this global scientific framework, we need to expand our understanding of what counts as a valid data coming directly from them. Most of the world knowledge already exists within communities, and it remains unrecognized because it's not captured in formats and not mostly in scientific use. So what you're actually doing through the African Ocean Biodiversity Atlas is creating the bridge between the two worlds, where the local communities, where they don't really know what is happening in this global space, gets access to know what is actually happening. We are actually making the local knowledge and then the fisheries and the blue carbon actually accessible, structured, and it should be used in the global scale. In conclusion, integrating local indigenous knowledge requires we recognize the value, translate each structured data, and align with global systems, and ensure the process is very inclusive, not just normal scientific data that we just use and we make decisions for the local communities. without actually bringing their knowledge on board. By doing this, we don't only fill the data gap, but we build an effective model for ocean data science. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate your response, Peter, because as you mentioned, dimension of knowledge gaps that we are talking about, not just missing data, but on the other side, we are talking about knowledge or underrepresented knowledge systems. And because in many regions, local and indigenous knowledge already exists, but isn't always integrated into scientific frameworks. So now I would like to continue with our next panelist, Joanna Klein, but please let me introduce her. So she is a PhD researcher at Ifremer in France in marine geophysics, studying the role of the nature of the tectonic plates in earthquake generation. Her study area is the Eastern Caribbean, and she works closely with the partners in Guadeloupe in Martinique. A lot of challenging.
Yes,
words.
perfect. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So my question to you, Joanna, how can we democratize access to oceanographic data for developing natures to ensure science-based decision-making?
So thank you, first of all, for this somewhat spontaneous invitation. I will try to answer this question as fast as I can. I believe that somebody has been invested previously and has prepared a slide. I'm hoping I can
keep the
match.
question for you if you like.
Okay.
Awesome.
I will just keep the question maybe in this case.
Sure. It's this one.
Don't.
Okay. Awesome.
So as I said, I will try to answer it as best as I can. And I'm very happy that I'm able to, or that I'm having the opportunity here, because it's touching on a question I've been posing yesterday to our panelists on ocean tech. And I've been reflecting on this, since then, and I've been coming up with a threefold answer to this, which builds on one another, and I would like to start with the point of access. So open and usable data. Not just available data. And this is touching actually on one of the subjects of the hackathon as well, the digital mapping challenge in which I was involved. So I'm very happy that I can bring this up here. I'm very excited for our presentation later. So on this point, it's not enough to just say that data is open, but people actually need to access and work with it, right? So that means that we need to have standardized formats and good metadata. And every ocean researcher in this room knows that this is not the fun part of the job, but it is absolutely necessary to be able to share it properly. And we need to find access options for shareholders with low bandwidth access to data. So we need to find user-friendly platforms and tools. Otherwise, open data still ends up being effectively closed to many people along the Atlantic shores. And this is leading me to my second point of my answer, which is to invest in local capacity and infrastructure. And I think this is a community effort, right? So data only becomes useful when there is the ability to interpret it and to apply it. And for this, we need training and long-term partnerships, not one-off workshops, but really long-term partnerships. And I do think that AAORIA is actually a beautiful example for that. This is like a long-term thing where we've been building and we keep on building. And I think exactly these kind of efforts are extremely important in these efforts. So, and with this, we need to provide support for local institutions and early career scientists, which evidently is happening, looking at this panel here, and having touched on yesterday by the Blue Schools. And definitely, we've been talking about ocean tech, so we need access to computing resources, and novel technologies like cloud services are extremely helpful in this regard. Because without all of this, data flows in one direction and decision-making stays external. For my third point, I'm going to take a sip of water.
Balthazar.
Yes, so to close my answer, I would like to also point out the shift. Excuse me.
Take your time.
Oh. It's just, yeah, I want to be building attention here. Does it work, people? So for the final part of my answer, I would like to point out the shift toward Jesus.
Another victim of the karaoke night, maybe? We can pause and come back to you if you like.
I feel like I should be able to. Actually, yes. Can we do this? I'm so sorry.
Sure, I can take over. So I really feel grateful what you highlighted, Joanna, right? Especially when we talk about the underrepresented knowledge systems, and you will see later today in the hackathon wrap-up, we touch upon many different wonderful projects that they highlight not only capacity building, but also sharing, capacity sharing, and how we can ensure the co-production of knowledge together within the communities and for the communities and with the communities. So now I would like to introduce our next panelist with a proper, this time, definition. I'm so sorry. So Dr. Raquel Oliveira. Raquel Reno de Oliveira is a marine biochemistry researcher with focus on carbon dioxide fluxes between ocean and atmosphere. Currently, she works as a science and innovation advisor at INPO, and she is a member of Surface Ocean Lower Atmosphere Study, aka SOLAS, Early Career Scientist Committee, and also a member of the International Carbon Ocean Network for Early Career from the Global Ocean Acidifica Observing Network, which is also called GOA-ON, right? Awesome. So my question to you, Raquel, we talk about the access to data and also integration of the knowledge. And the maybe next question is, how do we make that knowledge actionable, right? Because we do have the systems, but when it comes to action, everyone is getting back, and probably someone in the room will find out the solution. So especially for coastal communities who are directly affected. And the real question is, especially you from your own experience in Brazil, what strategies can be implemented to expand open access data initiatives and effectively bridge existing knowledge gaps in marine science?
Thank you, Denise. Good morning, everyone. Sorry. So good morning, everyone. I also want to thank you for the invite to participate in this session. I'm very honored, but a little bit scared, so I apologize because I had less than 10 hours to prepare myself. It was a very spontaneous invitation. So I'm sorry if it feels not very clear. But talking about the question, like the strategies that we can make open access data more reliable and more accessible. I think it's a problem with this microphone.
Karaoke night.
I'm so
Such
sorry.
a timing.
I'm sorry. So I'm working in INPO that you heard so many times here in the forum and in the hackathon and the summer school. It's a new institute for ocean research here in Brazil. And in INPO, we are working in this national diagnosis for the ocean research and not also in development. So the diagnosis is divided in 4 cycles. One is related to databases and data sets. the other related to infrastructure, like research infrastructure and in companies' infrastructures for research and ocean development. The third cycle is related to policymakers to understand what they need for science and for data, and what we can ask them, or what it's missing in the research that we need to improve in the policy level. And finally, the fourth cycle is related to ocean and society. That is also be active listener about what the society needs from the data point, and also to integrate the knowledge that they already have, like Peter was saying, and also Jan, and also Dennis pointed out very beautiful. So this is a structure of our diagnosis that we will develop in the further years. So for the first cycle, we already have some results. And I'm sorry it's in Portuguese because I didn't have much time to translate, but mainly what the figure shows is from the Brazilian research perspective, how many of them use open access data from databases around the world, and how many of them contribute to this open data databases. So we can see that most of them use open data sets, but there is not that much that they contribute to this data set. So we start to think about it, why it is happening, and why some areas produce more and share more data than others. And we couldn't find the perfect answer for that. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But we feel that there's some steps that we also can achieve and solve. So one of them is the time to process the data. That is, for some sensors, it's quite easy, right? You just go there, put the sensor in the water, and you already have your data set, for example, for physical instruments or also underway instruments. But for some others, you need to process your data, right? You need to go to the lab, you need to transform the sample in data. So this takes a lot of time. And sometimes people don't feel also that this can integrate in some databases, because when you already have your file and just put in some database is easy, right? Just to put your CSV file or your NetCDF file, and it's easy. But when you transform the sample in data, it's not necessarily easy to implement in the already existing databases. Another problem is that it takes so long to collect, like especially in the Global South perspective now. It takes so long to take data, and it takes so long to publish the data, that some people feel that if they share the data, they will lose the information, they lose the novelty of the research. And then this might impact the financial support that they will receive, right? Because if it's not new, you cannot get the money. So this is also a lack of trust, right? People don't share, and it's a little bit bad for everyone, because then you cannot create new ideas and create new questions. And also, so to achieve some of this, IMPO is also created this infrastructure that will be like a national hub related to ODIS, will be our ODIS node here in Brazil, that it's meant to be accessible and easy to everyone, like not only research, but policymakers and the rest of the society, to go there and take and upload your own data, but also download the data that already exists. So it's we are trying to create a very intuitive platform that can be accessible. And this can contribute to this new idea to create a digital ocean. And we need data for that, right? Because you cannot properly create something without the understanding of this. So for the global south, especially South Atlantic, we still need to collect data. And this diagnosis also help us to understand where is the areas that we need to improve data collection. So about the strategies now, I'm sorry that I'm taking too long. I think the strategies here is to change how the productivity metrics are and how this can impact the financial support. We need more integrated platforms and make the data more accessible for everyone, not only for researchers, but for everyone that use this information for their daily lives. And we saw that a lot in the hackathon, in all the groups, and my group was especially dedicated to low-cost sensors, and then we also try to make our decisions based in the local needs from the fishermen. So we are trying to make this more accessible. So we need to be active listeners from this traditional knowledge, right? Because the old science, you're supposed to just give them the information, and we don't listen too much. And they have a lot of knowledge. They know everything about their reality, and they can help us to also find where we need to improve our understanding and make this connective knowledge, right? As Peter was saying, he is creating this cool platform to integrate information for biodiversity and helping the community, but also the scientists that use this data, right? And this knowledge. So as for the ECOPS now, what we can do, because sometimes we feel like we are in the kids' table. I think we can organize ourselves. I have these cool examples about SOLAS and GOAON, that we have these dedicated committees for early career scientists. And we already are doing some papers and perspective papers and policy briefs. And I know that last year in the AAORIA Forum, you from the early career also contribute with policy briefs. So we are active members of this community. And what I will read now, sorry. And I think we need to take this energy to another level for the Ocean Decade Conference next year. But not only sitting in the kids' table, but integrate ECOP voices in every room and every decision, because we are also the new generation, and we need to change the narrative and change how we see the data and change the system from some way. And so ECOPs unite ourselves and organize ourselves. Thank you.
I am so happy to have Raquel here as not only as a team member called Dende that you will be hearing about today, but also what you pointed out, right? We are talking about an infrastructure, but not only to treat the system that, okay, we have something there, but actually working, acting as a maybe umbrella to connecting all those points that pointed nicely listed there. Like how we can make sure the ocean and society is working together, we are bridging, and how we can make sure the data is not only accessible, but also understandable. Because if I go to community and it's just like, boom, a lot of metadata, and it's so uninviting, and I really appreciate that you pointed that out. Go ahead.
Can I just compliment something that we're saying? I remember something that I forgot to tell you. That I think we already have a lot of examples that really works. And I think doing this community work together, it's also helping us to understand what works in your country and your reality and how we can translate to our own reality, right? Because I know that in Europe, there is a lot of infrastructures and a lot of ways to do this data, open access data more accessible, but we still have to learn how to do that in our own reality. So this community, like AAORIA, it's a great opportunity to people integrate and discuss together how these cool strategies can be translated for everyone's reality. So thank you, sorry.
Thank you for being here once again. So maybe before going to Vitor, I would like Joanna to wrap up her final points. You okay technically?
Yes, thank you so much. I will be speaking more often. It gives me free candy. This is great. So just to be picking back up on my 3-point agenda here. So I've been addressing data access, capacity building. And actually, my third point is building on what Raquel has just been saying as well, because I think the third part of my statement would be that we really need a shift toward equitable collaboration and ownership as well. And these are deeper structural pieces, and I really believe that, especially for me, having done my studies in Germany and now doing my research in France in very big marine research institutes, I do think that we need to put more emphasis into co-design of projects with local stakeholders from the very start to ensure shared ownership of data and results, and require data sharing and local involvement as part of funding. And this is a call actually towards policymakers. So the goal must be to move away from extractive science, but towards mutual benefit and local relevance. So if I may wrap up my entire answer in one sentence, I believe that democratizing ocean data isn't just about opening data sets. It's about making them usable, building the capacity to apply them, and to ensure fair partnerships and how they're produced and being shared. So thank you very much as well for the caddy.
Thank you so much, Anna, for getting back to us with the wonderful points. So this is working. Oh yeah, sorry. I know the time is a bit up for us. We have the blinking minutes now pressuring the conversation, but since ECOPs are here, I would like to use the chance to mimic or have the reflection of the voices from them. And since also the session started a bit late and we are naturally evolving this, we would really appreciate if you'd like to remain in the room, but this is totally up to you, since on the agenda it says we are kind of coming to the end. We also appreciate that. But now, finally, we look toward the emerging technologies. And when often hear that robotics and AI, we transform ocean science, but the question is how realistic, right? And how accessible these tools are. So my question to you, Vitor, what are the main challenges in exploring Atlantic Ocean? And how can robotics and AI help overcome them?
Hello, good morning.
I'm so sorry, so sorry. I also have to introduce you. That timing is pressuring me, I'm so sorry. So, yeah, please let me also introduce João Vitor Mendes, robotics engineer at SENAI CIMATEC, holding a Bachelor in Science and Electrical Engineering and currently pursuing a master degree in mechatronics, focusing on learning-based control for marine robotics operating under ocean disturbances.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Well, to start this answer, I want to explore what are the main challenges that we have to explore the Atlantic and the deep ocean. That is, we have a figure here that shows how deep can be the ocean, and there is a lot of pressure, and we have a hard environment to communicate and navigate, and complex topography, and we want to be there. We want to collect data from this ocean, but it's really hard to have a persistent monitoring, and is a lot of expensive. So what is being doing today, it's send some people to there to explore, collect data, and sometimes we have a chance to have a robot, a remote operated vehicle that we call ROVs, like this one on the image on the right. But it's not secure to have persons in this kind of environment. And this kind of robot that I'm showing to you, it's a robot that must be operated by someone. So it's a lot of expensive to be there with this kind of robot. So how can we improve this kind of monitoring? And well, I will try to show some solutions that we have been developing here in Bahia, and also showing what are the open challenges that remain in our research. So the first of all is present to you one of our technologies that are the AUVs, these autonomous underwater vehicles. What we want to build with this technology is resident robots. What I mean with this, we want to make a robot live in the ocean and live then to make what we want to do. So collect the data and make navigations by themselves. We do not want to control this robot. We just want to live here alone in the ocean, and after 6 months, we go there to collect the data. This makes all the collection of data more easy. The next solution that we can also do is put bottle nodes, and we have here a reference, the Wong research, that he explained more about what is an ocean bottle node. It's like a bottle that we put in the surface of the ocean, and we can collect data. But we do not want to go there, collect data every day. We want to keep the data there and go to collect when we want, when it will be necessary. So it's another technology that you want to build here. We are seeking for improve this solution in Bahia at SENAI CIMATEC with the helping of other companies. And it's an amazing solution, but there remain a lot of challenges to improve this kind of technology, because communication in the ocean, it's really hard. So I want to summarize the gaps and the open challenges that we have, because we have a lot of technologies being developed, but there is a lot of challenges yet, and we must keep going to solve them. So what we have, a lot of problems with ocean disturbance. We have underwater vehicles working near to platforms of oil and gas industries, and the disturbances of the ocean is still a problem for these robots, and we want to improve our control systems to help these robots to deal with these disturbances and keep stable to not make any damage to the ocean life and to the ocean infrastructure. So another thing that we are seeking to solve is making the control systems more secure, to have to deal with the limitations of the hardware that we still have in the robots. We are still researching and trying to improve, but sometimes we must go to the algorithms and try to improve from there. And helping these robots and vehicles to be autonomy with artificial intelligence, we still have a lot of challenges with real-time integration of the perception, planning, and the adaptive operation. And we are focused on that right now. And finally, data overload. We have a lot of data inside the water that we want to collect, but we do not have yet the kind of computer process that can deal with all of this data. So what we do today is collect the data and process offline. But sometimes we need this information being processed in real time, and we want to improve this hardware yet. But finally, it's with this technology that we can improve the knowledge gaps that we have in the deep ocean that we can't have access today, but maybe tomorrow we will get then with the robots. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vitor. And yeah, I hear a lot, right? We have knowledge gaps we're talking about, but maybe now we're moving under the ocean, like how deep it is and how maybe sometimes dark it is to understand. Technology is one side, but also our capacities, how to improve it and how to make it possible. So now we would like to go beyond this line and to reach out to you and maybe bring you into discussion. We have a digital platform, if we can, 5 more minutes, all I ask about. So we will use the digital platform to explore 3 questions. And these are not just reflections, right? But inputs that will hopefully feed into the next discussion. Can we bring the QR code? Is it possible? So people can, oh yeah, it's there. Is it the one? Awesome. So if you can read that QR code, our first question will be, how can the concepts, I'm sure you will see that, but I also will read, how can the concepts discussed today be applied to a real environmental problem in your city? And maybe we can start to showcase the answers for a few seconds before I move to the next question. No answers yet? I know it's a tough question. Okay. We can have more than 5 people. We can do this. We need your feedback to help improve those discussions and go beyond those discussions, right? So please join us. It's really important for us to understand your perspectives and to meet on the same page to move forward for actionable solutions. Awesome. While those answers are moving, okay, maybe a few more seconds for the other 9 participants, because I'm not sure if we move to the next question, whether you will still be able to answer the questions. Is it possible? Can audience still finish up? No. Okay. So then, yeah. But again, I think we have some echo about the co-design, engaging communities in the global platforms, and better coastal and deep sea monitoring, as well as internet in the ocean. More observations. Yeah, yesterday, right? GPS was another discussion as well. All right, so we have to move to the next presentation, but I'm going to wait for that one participant as well. We moved? Okay. So then, I'm sorry. Which technology discussed has the highest potential for protecting marine biodiversity for you? A UV we have? Or UAV? Autonomous robots, okay. Okay, a lot of ROV. Awesome, awesome. Don't copy, please, the answers. We see residence autonomy to report violations, AI data from sensors and robots, awesome, data sets. Real-time accessible data. And maybe accessible platforms too, right? That's one of the things that we want to achieve also. How can we track changes and how can we be more inclusive? Okay, few more seconds for 2 participants before we move. And national mapping and diagnosis. Thank you. And the last one, and importantly, what knowledge gap exists in your region that prevents solution from happening? I think that's the hardest one. So many barriers we are talking about. But it's also interesting to see many responses around data accessibility we saw today, right? And also several of you mentioned community engagement as a gap as well. And AI somewhat comes a lot, but also concerns about access, that we will be discovering something that we don't know yet how the sphere. And trust, collaboration, we see policy drivers, design, decision-making processes, yes. While you are still typing, I will finalize the panel session. So what we have heard today is knowledge gaps are not just about missing data, and they're about who produces the knowledge as well as who accesses to it and how it is translated into action. So we've seen that solutions already exist across different domains, from community-led data collection to improve data sharing, as well as advanced technologies like AI and robotics. But the challenge and the opportunity lies in connecting these approaches. And with that, we now transition from identifying gaps to exploring solutions into next session. And thank you to our panelists once more time, and to all of you for your contributions and patience.
Wow, thank you so much. Muito obrigada. Oh, I wish I could also be still recognize an ACOP, but I can't anymore. But like, I'm really inspired with all this force that comes from all of you, and has really the power to really turn the tide if we like organize ourselves, as Raquel told about it, and with a lot of financial support and hopefully future tenure track positions for all of us. Anyway, so now we go from asking questions to measuring the answers. Ocean observation and modeling. Okay, it's already there. And modeling, because you can fix what you don't measure, and you can't predict what you don't model, right? And with that, for moderate our session, I'm honored to invite here to the stage Dr. Steve Torr, NOAA's Assistant Administration for Ocean and Atmospheric Research and Acting Chief Scientist. He oversees the operation of 10 laboratories and 6 programs in the NOAA research enterprise. Steve, welcome. The floor is yours.
Good day, everyone. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the introduction, and I'm so thankful to our hosts for convening this forum. We've had an excellent day and a half or so, and I'm looking forward to the remainder of today's sessions. I want to invite the panelists to come to the stage to join me. First up, Dr. Maria Paz Chidichimo is a physical oceanographer and senior researcher at the Argentine Scientific and Technical Research Council, and also has an appointment at the National University of San Martin in Buenos Aires. Dr. Ben Moat is head of open ocean physics at the UK's National Oceanography Centre. Dr. Thorsten Kiefer is the executive director of JPI Oceans. Jathan Dotman is a senior technician with the South African Environmental Observation Network. And Dr. Mari Jensen is a researcher with the Institute of Marine Research in Norway. So I'm going to set the stage for what this session is about, and then I'm going to turn it over to these experts. We're going to get a whirlwind view of the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, AMOC. I have been convinced that 3 of these 5 are going to condense a semester-long course on AMOC into 14 minutes, all right? And then we're gonna get into a discussion about what we need to do to better understand the system. So the context that I referenced. At the Cape Town 2023 Forum, AAORIA adopted 2 areas of action. One of those was ocean observation and modeling. Prior to the 2024 Forum in Ottawa, the US convened a hybrid workshop, in person in Washington, DC, and virtually online, of experts to give AAORIA recommendations of what we needed to do to advance the ocean observation and modeling priority area. They came up with 5 goals, several recommendations under each. One of those was to better understand and study AMOC. So what we're here to do today is to convey to the AAORIA community our state of understanding. This might be among the most technical presentations at the forum. Cover the uncertainty in that understanding and talk about what we need to do next as a community. With that context having been set, I'm going to turn the podium over to Maria Paz to begin a 3-person presentation, then we'll get into the discussion.
So thank you for having me here. I am Maria Paz Chiditimo, and thank you, Steve, for the introduction and to all the panelists. So I will be talking about, so the title we chose here is Navigating Uncertainty. So why predicting the Atlantic Meridian overturning circulation, AMOC, is a matter of global and regional safety, security, and economic well-being. And I want to recognize all the co-authors in this presentation. They are listed here. So probably most of you are familiar, some probably are not. So just a brief introduction, what is the AMOC? So the AMOC is an ocean circulation system, which is very complex. The AMOC refers to the Atlantic, where we can see that there are connections with all the ocean basins. It's driven by changes in ocean density and winds. And it's really important because it distributes heat, salt, carbon, nutrients, and other properties around the planet. In particular, in the, sorry, it doesn't work. So in the Atlantic, there is a warm flow. So the upper ocean flow goes northward from the subtropical South Atlantic, crossing the equator to the North Atlantic, where these waters are sinking. So one could think that the Atlantic is a central and cooling system by moving heat away from the South Atlantic to the North Atlantic. That is when the system is functioning as we think, but what happens if there is an abrupt disruption or if it is weakening, as we are already seeing evidence. So we know that AMOC is going to weaken or is weakening now. There is mounting evidence on that. So this is really important now to affect what we are planning today for mitigation and adaptation strategies for the different regions in the globe, I would say. So an adaptation is really important for national security, resilience, and safety, among many other things. So this is a work we are doing. Sorry, the title cannot be seen probably. So we are assessing which is the evidence of the impacts of a weakening AMOC worldwide. So, for instance, so we want to understand if the physical or chemical conditions change in the ocean or in the ocean circulation of AMOC is weakening, and how does it interact with the atmosphere and the other Earth system components to produce these environmental changes, which also lead to socio-economic impacts for many countries. So for instance, there are changes in global rainfall, extreme weather events in the water cycle, which will have an impact on agriculture, livelihoods, etc. So all impacting people, biodiversity, or at the more regional level, for instance, in the South Atlantic, we are observing changes in the regional ocean circulation patterns, which are leading to changes in extreme weather events near the coast, and also sea level rise. All of these are affecting also, putting a stress on ecosystems, and of course they impact infrastructure on what happens near the coast, but also inland. So we want to stress here, or all of us agree that changes in the AMOC have a global and cascading effects. And they have also changes in the AMOC will have an impact on the ocean, but also on the terrestrial conditions on land, not only on the coast, but inland. So, so this is an schematic, so this is taken for the last report of the global tipping points, which was released last year into 2025. So we can see, so on the left side is how cascading impacts would work. So one would have a current context where probably there is limited capacity to absorb negative events. Then that would be would act as building stressors, and then that would lead to sudden or gradual tipping points where the system can probably not recover due to intense events or a combination of events. So AMOC, and then this would lead to systematic failure. So AMOC collapse has been characterized as an Earth system tipping point hazard, together with ice sheet loss, the Amazon dieback, which is very important here in Brazil. And of course, all of these will have consequences, direct consequences via physical impacts. Of course, there are a number of feedbacks. All of these processes are interrelated. There is not just a single process, but the question is how they will act all together for our planet. So, and I will just go very briefly because time is limited. But so, which are the risks? So we are risking food, energy, water, human security. We are risking economic well-being, stability. We're also risking social equity, sustainability, etc. So all of the reasons I'm just trying, so we are trying to give a glimpse of why it's really important to keep understanding which are the driving mechanisms, physical mechanisms or chemical mechanisms driving AMOC change and the circulation, the components, and how they will evolve in the future, because that's what we really know for secure planning. Thank you. I will pass over to Ben.
Okay, thank you. So how do we actually measure these global scale, very complex, large scale ocean circulation? So as you can see, we have a number of arrays across the Atlantic. And I'm going to sort of talk about or mention three today here, which is the Samba array. So that's across 34.5 south. The Rapid array, which is between Africa and Florida. And then the OSNAP array, which is through the subpolar North Atlantic. Now, it's worth mentioning that all of these arrays are truly international efforts from Europe, UK, North America, South America, and our associated partners. So this is through funding to keep the arrays in the water, all the way through that value chain of the processing of the data, the releases of the data, and the data through to data centers, so we can produce all of our effort, all of the data to the whole community for processing. So how do we measure it? Well, we have very tall wires in the ocean that go from the seabed all the way to close to the ocean surface. So that this is our tallest wires are probably 5,000 meters, 5 kilometers in height. And on those wires, we bolt sensors, which basically measure the density. And we have those on each boundary. And from that, we can calculate the geostrophic flow, the strength of the AMOC. But it's not just about the strength that is of value. It's the amount of heat that is redistributed around the globe. And to make estimates of this heat transport, we need the whole sustained observing system. So we need Argo to fill those gaps. We need ships, not just to go out and deploy and recover those mooring arrays, but also the transatlantic GO ship sections, so they can tell us about how the deep ocean is changing, and also the chemical properties of the deep ocean. They can give us very high accurate measurements but they're only every 5 or 10 years. But we're also thinking about new technology. So these wires are in water for up to 2.5 years. So there's quite a delay in our updates to the AMOC time series. So we have operationally at the moment on the western boundary of the 26 North Array, a telemetry system. So we can fly a glider, a surface vehicle, an autonomous vehicle to the mooring, harvest, download the data from it, transmit that back via satellite in sort of close to near real time. So what's the current state of the AMOC? Top panel, vertical axis is the strength of the AMOC, and this is from the 26 North Array, which has been operational since 2004. So this, basically what this is showing on average, there's 17 million cubic meters of water per second, which is a Sverdrup, that goes northwards at this section. 2004 to near present day, there is a decline, that bold line. There's variability within the AMOC, but it is showing a decline. Climate models. So this is from the AR6 IPCC report. And as you can see, the rapid section is that green in the middle, and it's showing a decline. So both rapid and climate models are showing a decline of around 1 Sverdrup, so 1 million cubic meters of water per second per decade. So they agree. So we can ask ourselves, well, is that job done? We can stop our observing. The answer to that is absolutely no. What we're seeing here at Rapid is basically the signal is not yet really emerging from the background noise, the planetary systems. And we've worked out we need to really carry on observing at the Rapid for up to another 10 years plus at least, through to like 2035, even up to 2040. So we can really confirm that that weakening signal is robust and it will carry on weakening. Quickly mention, it's not just about weakening either, it's about abrupt changes. So if we look in 2009, 2010, you can actually see an event where the AMOC at 26 North actually reduced close to zero and stopped. We've heard about ocean circulation yesterday and sea level rise. New York, during this event, sea level rise in New York rose by 13 centimeters. And this event also contributed to our cold winters in 2010. So we thought we'd talk about potential future projections, potentially around this area. So if you have a weakening AMOC, less heat is moved northwards away from the tropics and subtropics, so the heat builds up. That connects to the atmosphere. It drives the ITCZ that basically pushes the storm tracks further south. And what this projection shows, in the brown there, quite a drier sort of Amazon and northern Brazil. There is a lot of uncertainty and differences between the climate projections. So as a community, what we really need to do is think about the design of the climate models and ask ourselves the questions, well, how do we improve the climate models to really answer the questions we need to ask of them? Because we're asking a lot from these climate models. You know, it's the interaction with the poles, interaction with the atmosphere, and interaction with the land that really matter. So we can make improvements to those into the future. And we can also make constraints on those models where you can use observations to constrain what we have. So this is just finally from me, really is the future is we need to co-design. We need to talk about what we want from an observing system, not just from observations, because we can't measure everywhere. We need to integrate those observations and the models and bring it together and really ask ourselves that question. What do we need for a system perhaps for early warning? To which I'll pass over.
Good, okay. Yeah, thanks for setting the scene. So now I think it's clear that AMOC is a thing that really affects us, and we should know how it's developing, and we have some capabilities, but not enough. Okay, then here's now elements of converging major initiatives that together, I think, produce a space for huge opportunity to make a leap in our observing and prediction capabilities. So maybe starting at the top, bottom top, in the UK, there's an AAORIA program on climate tipping points to improve our capability of predicting the tipping points and early warning. So one thing, in Europe, the European Union is really embarking on ocean observing. In last year in Nice, and the Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has announced, and now in March launched an ocean observing initiative in Europe, the Ocean Eye. This is about strengthening and coordinating ocean observing capacities across the European Union, but in particular to increase the EU's contribution to the global ocean observing system known as GOOSE, and to lead global efforts to ensure that it is sustained and resilient. So what's in it, in the Ocean Eye? It's three things, maybe more, but three major things. One is to establish an international alliance aimed at mobilizing international partners and funding. This is developed together with the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, the IOC, and together with the GOOSE, the Global Ocean Observing System, 17 international observing networks. The second thing is, and that's where the rubber hits the road, is about money. So the European Commission has committed 50 million euros from the Horizon Europe program over this year and the next year as an initial commitment to get things started and to stabilize and expand the GOOSE networks and strengthen global strategic coordination. Particular focus there is on biodiversity and on ecosystem observation. And third, also money injection into strengthening marine data and knowledge services. A 12 million euro public procurement has been launched, targeted at strengthening EMODNet, overall to safeguard and ensure the resilience of global ocean data flows, and using EMODNet, so this European data and knowledge service, to expand and strengthen its international contribution. So these are three things that the Ocean Eye is doing. Now on the scientific side, JPI Oceans and JPI Climate have initiated a major assessment process, AMOC in focus. This is ongoing, and actually the two experts, Maria and Ben, that spoke before me, are part of this author team of 60+ authors doing a comprehensive assessment of what we know, what we don't know about the AMOC, about its impacts, about how well we can observe it. So this is going to be published in early next year. And this, together with this initiative, the AAORIA Observing and Modeling initiative, and the recommendations, that can actually be a very powerful mix. If you put out recommendations in a coordinated way, in a clear fashion, and there's willingness to invest in ocean observing and monitoring, then we can actually make real progress in our abilities to monitor the AMOC going forward. Thank you.
I thank you for that presentation. There's going to be a final exam in the form of Slido questions in 14 minutes, so study your notes so that you can pass. I'm going to turn now to the discussion part of this panel. And first set of questions, I want to turn to Jathan. Both yesterday and in the earlier session this morning, we heard quite a bit about accessible ocean technology. And I know that's something that you work quite extensively on. Can you talk to us about what recommendations you may have for investing in and spreading those technologies and how they can pertain to what we need to do for ocean observing generically and potentially for supporting AMOC understanding specifically?
Thank you for the question. So our work at SEON, we have some ocean models that are looking at, they're very coastal and very regional, and there's still a lot of observations that need to feed into those models to make them more accurate. But what I'm finding through my work is that there's still a lot of data gaps in the Atlantic, but we know that there is data out there. So, and I'm quite encouraged to hear through this panel and through the discussions this week that there's a lot more collaborations and sharing of data. But perhaps how AAORIA can help is by creating a platform where the data is shared, and so we can identify what data is out there, and then also we can then use accessible ocean technologies to then plug those gaps and using these technologies to build further collaborations, and not just with the low-cost sensors, but with other technologies that are being developed in the region.
So I want to follow up a bit on that. So you talked about the need for accessible data and then the use of accessible and other technologies to be able to fill those. What's the most significant barrier you see on a day-to-day basis preventing that from becoming a reality?
I think it's just there's a big knowledge gap of how to collect the data. So particularly in the lower income countries, there's limited access to these resources, and then how to use them. So how to collect these observations meaningfully. And so I'm actually part of a project called CoLab, Coastal Observations Lab in a Box, where we are trying to use these technologies, bring them to these communities or to these countries, train the local people there, the ECOPs and et cetera, and then also give them the platform to share this data, so through ERDAP, which can then link to the global databases. And so through this, we sort of trying to tick a few boxes and just fill some data gaps, particularly in the coastal ocean.
So I am a science bureaucrat, and as all good bureaucrats, I like to find the path of least resistance to doing whatever I need to do. Some of what you've just described, and I know the work that SEON has been doing, I think are great examples that we can highlight through the Alliance and adopt those wheels that you have already invented and export that approach elsewhere. Thank you. Maria, I want to turn to you. Yesterday we had a fairly rousing discussion about the Atlantic being a pole-to-pole basin and that it is fully connected. Can you talk with us a little bit about AMOC and the Arctic? How are they connected, and what is the Institute for Marine Research in particular doing to understand that connection?
Yeah, thank you. The Arctic is very relevant when we talk about the AMOC because it's both influencing and being influenced by the AMOC. As was said several times yesterday and also this morning, what happens in the pole doesn't stay in the pole. And this is also true for the Arctic and the AMOC. In the Arctic now, we have the fastest changing region of the Earth. It's warming nearly 4 times the global average. And we see large changes in sea ice and input of fresh water. And input of fresh water, that's important for the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation as it's affecting how dense the surface waters are, a key component in the AMOC. So at the same time as then the Arctic is influencing the AMOC, it's also, of course, being influenced by the AMOC as the AMOC is transporting heat toward the Arctic, thus contributing to sea ice loss and changes in the ecosystem. So ideally, you would think that when the Arctic is declining, you could have less heat being transported into the Arctic, and maybe it could be a stabilizing feedback, dampening the climate effect we are seeing. But actually, so north of the OSNAP area, the Institute of Marine Research in Norway, we are observing what is happening to the Atlantic water that's coming into the Arctic. So we're observing one of the main gateways into the Arctic, and our observations are actually showing a stable circulation north of the Greenland-Scotland ridge. So we're actually seeing an increase in the heat transported into the Arctic instead of a decrease, which is maybe happening to the rest of the basin. So instead of having a stabilizing or a damping effect, we're actually seeing that a declining AMOC might have an increasing input of heat to the Arctic Ocean. And this is also what some of the climate projections are showing for the end of the century, and then something a researcher at IMR are looking into.
So you touched on at least 3 or 4 really significant complexities there. Yesterday, in at least one session, there was a reference to the Atlantification of the Arctic. If there was a single item that would make the biggest difference in our understanding of the Northern Atlantic connection to the Arctic, what would that be?
So then I'm going to touch on another point, because we're also seeing that there might be a compensation north in the Arctic and the Nordic seas. So dense waters are traditionally being produced in the northern North Atlantic, but there are indications that the Nordic seas and the Arctic Ocean might be now producing more dense water than they had before. So this might be the stabilizing effect we're after, and that's a key to understand what's going to happen to the AMOC in the future.
All right. Thank you very much for those comments. I've got a couple of questions for the whole of the panel. I'll throw out the first, open to anyone. If we could provide a 10-year early warning for a significant AMOC shift, and we heard during the presentation, we've studied it for about 25 years, we need, given interannual variability, at least another 15 years for a 40-year time series. So we clearly understand we've got research still to occur, but if we were looking to be able to provide a 10-year early warning for a significant shift, what is the single most important action we can take today to bring that about?
So if we have a 10-year early warning system, what we're thinking about in terms of time scale, so we're thinking AMOC really now is more like a decadal time scale. So if we had an early warning system, we could really make big inroads. So I think my answer really is communication, quite simply. That whole value chain from the observations themselves, through the data release, through to policy stakeholders, and true, good quality evidence with probabilities and the statistics about what will happen. Feed that through to the whole value chain, from socioeconomics through the financial losses, through to our own health, and through government, and all through that stakeholder chain.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Others' thoughts?
Yeah, so Maria showed this, made it very clear that AMOC is a global phenomenon, so any impacts of a changing AMOC will be also global in scale. So 10 years would maybe give us time to really adapt to the expected changes. And for example, about the food system, and I don't know the science yet, but I assume that food safety would be severely impacted with a major change in AMOC, because it doesn't just change the conditions in one place and then we can buy food from somewhere else, but it's, as I said, a global phenomenon. So yes, adapting the food systems would certainly be one thing.
And something that's terribly important, and something that matters to everyone on the planet, in a way that we can connect food security, the cultural preferences we have for the foods that we eat, to something as scientifically complex as AMOC. Maria Paz?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so I agree with what has been said. So, but I feel like, so we know we are already having more and more evidence of what the changes could look like. So we need to think about how those changes, because they won't be affecting every place in the planet in the same way. So how do we cooperate together to protect more vulnerable places or communities or agricultural activities that are important for people, for food access? Or how do we protect really the ocean against, I don't know, overfishing or things that put more stress in the ocean apart from warming or salinification? So I think we really need to think like, go to the basics in a way and think, okay, which are the priorities and where do we need to put more investment or protection or infrastructure, etc. So I would go that way.
An impressive point, and I think the graphic that you showed earlier about the cascade of impacts and how they feed upon one another is actually quite powerful. All right, I've got one more question for the panel, but as I do that, I want to turn to our assistant team to ask if they could bring up the QR code for the Slido, and folks can hit that as they're listening to the responses, and that will allow us to get into a bit of the audience feedback a little bit quicker. So for the last question, we've talked about some of the needs, we've talked about the uncertainty scientifically. If there's a blind spot in our current ocean observing system that could be most effectively filled to help us understand and refine our projections of the future AMOC state, what would that blind spot be? Please.
I'm going to move back to the Arctic and the sea ice, because we see now a lot of these changes in the dense water formation is happening close to sea ice edge, where you have a lot of heat loss to the atmosphere. And of course, it's hard to measure close to the sea ice edge. It ruins your instruments. It's moving forth and back. But now with all this new technology, we see improvement in that. And then I really think we can understand more of what's going on in the Arctic.
And I do think advances in technology are going to really help us understand that space in a way that causes scientists to gnash their teeth less because of the lost equipment. Others' thoughts?
I can just add on and say that with the advancements in technology, it's very important that we understand how our sensors and things behave. So Ben and I were chatting, and we need to, like with gliders as an example, the calibration of the sensors is very important because we need to understand how the sensors are drifting while they're in the water. There's things we can do, but there's still a lot of advancements that need to be made to fully understand how our technologies are helping us.
And I think that response complements some of the things that Ben talked about, the need for continuous monitoring in certain locations, and then the need for episodic modeling and, monitoring elsewhere to be able to fill in a deeper way our knowledge.
Yeah, so we know with observations, we just don't have the resources to measure everywhere at the same time. So our priorities are really around, we need to determine where we need to measure for early warning systems, and that's globally as well, because you mentioned the Arctic, but also the Antarctica, the Southern Ocean. The dynamics there are so crucial for AMOC itself. So we have a number of arrays through the Atlantic, but there are huge gaps between those arrays. So if into the sort of future thinking, if we could come up with a way to fill those gaps in terms of either satellite observing through to Argo, deep ocean changes, this type of system where we could have a more of a global view of how AMOC is changing. Because at present, we see that weakening at 26 North between Africa and Florida. But across the subpolar North Atlantic, there's no weakening in there for the 10 years. So we presently still don't understand the connections between the three arrays that I've been talking around.
I just want to add to what Ben said. So I think it's really important. So we have these arrays. So for some of them, we don't know really what is happening in the middle. So in a way, we are moving away from the traditional picture of a conveyor belt, a clean conveyor belt. So there are many processes in between on different time scales. And I think it's really important to also move towards a better in the South Atlantic to better understand the interocean exchanges with the Pacific and the Atlantic and with the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic near South Africa. So that would be really good to have continuous measurements there to better understand timescales.
For such an important environmental phenomenon, I think the paucity of data that exists is really quite striking, and it's something that we've got to see what we can do to address. Torsten.
And maybe I can add the other sphere is the modeling. From the modeling sphere, I'm not a modeler, so I might say nonsense, but from reading literature, it seems that the models, they are somehow converging, and it's not today, or they show the same trend, but they might show it for the wrong reason. And a major flaw in the models, as I understand, is that they don't have dynamic ice sheets. So what we actually think drives change in marinal overturning circulation, the freshwater flow from the northern ice sheets, that is not captured in the models very well or at all. So there, in the models, the AMOC changes are more wind driven. So that is, I think that's concerning. So if we can, if there, the magic wand and all the models would have a dynamic ice sheet and we could really represent reality more, that would be probably a major step.
And that was not planned, but Torsten, thank you very much. I set the stage by stating this was a singular area of action under AAORIA that combined both ocean observation and modeling. And that was intentional. They were not separate areas of action. They were brought together specifically so that our observations directly fed into our modeling efforts to understand and predict the future. All right, you had a whirlwind semester tour of AMOC. You have a 3-question final exam. The first one has already been asked. Thank you for everyone that has answered. There are no wrong answers, so you're all going to pass the final exam. The first one was about concern. It was a way to check the pulse of the room. Thank you for those that have participated. We've got quite a bit of the room that are fairly concerned, given our understanding of the situation, that we are here at the forum. That does not surprise me. If we can move on to the second question. And I think this gets to the societal impacts and how we communicate what a change in AMOC could mean at the human scale. We're asking you to make a selection from agricultural shifts, economic strain, marine resource variability, infrastructure issues, extreme weather, or human health. Which of these potential impacts concerns you most? And one of the reasons we may be asking this question is it's helpful to have an understanding of what your communities may resonate with. If we look at and communicate changes that are this potentially significant, what are those human factors that would most resonate with your communities? All right. Some stabilization, we've got some answers that are a little lower off the screen. We are capturing those data for use by our team that is working on this area of action after the forum. But clearly, extreme weather shifts, marine resource management issues, and infrastructure, particularly around potential changes in sea levels, seem to be among we've got a majority and a plurality of responses from those that are participating. Thank you. If we could shift to the very last question. Free response, and the question I think says give us one word. Since it's anonymous, you can give us a few more words without failing your exam. One word or phrase that best describes the most critical next step for what we in the area community need to do to take action. And I will put mine into here verbally, and Torsten addressed it. We need funding. We've got, as national entities that have control of resources, have to choose to allocate those toward the recommendations that have already been made. That's my personal opinion. I don't have my phone in front of me, and I'm putting that one down. I'm seeing quite a bit here. I saw political will going by, and I think that is critically important. And we've got several other words that have also appeared in multiple other sessions during this forum. So as we wrap up this session, continue to submit your answers. I want to ask the team if we can go back to the main presentation slides. And I want to put up the final slide, which will have a pair of QR codes for the expert report on ocean observation and modeling. One of those QR codes is to an executive summary. It's very brief. It is something that you can use to communicate with others. The other QR code is for the full report. And that may be more useful for those that are more scientifically inclined or want to get engaged. I want to conclude the session by saying that what we have highlighted in a very scientific way has very, very human scale impacts for most of our communities around the shared Atlantic basin. I am very hopeful that we're going to be able to use the Alliance to drive forward shared action on understanding AMOC and predicting how it may change in the future. I want to thank the panelists for their time, their enthusiasm, for their insights. Please join me in doing that, and I wish you all the remainder, a great remainder of the forum.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, all panelists. I was about to answer my question, the last question. We too need to communicate because I need to tell my mom that she needs to stop to see like the Day After Tomorrow movie, because every time that she hears about AMOC, she says, "Oh my God, that movie." We do also need to work with communication. But thank you so much. So now I had to change for this tiny device. So just a second. And oh my God, we're gonna have a break. We earned 50 minutes. But like, guys, please, it's only 50 minutes because we are really, really behind in the schedule. So please, please, please come back at 11:20 sharp.
connected. Changes in one of these sectors can generate ripple effects across the entire ocean, with diverse impacts on marine ecosystems, an intricate domino effect. How can we address these complicated effects? How can we increase our knowledge about the consequences of human activities in the ocean? This is where initiatives like Mission Atlantic are crucial. By implementing integrated ecosystem assessments, we're diving deep into the ocean's complexities, collecting data, extracting indicators of ecosystem change, and performing risk and vulnerability analysis under present conditions and future ocean states. With cutting-edge numerical tools, models, and artificial intelligence, we're unraveling the status of marine ecosystems, providing insights into present developments and future scenarios. Mission Atlantic uses a range of observational system and autonomous solutions to monitor and model these changes at unprecedented resolution. This is achieved by collecting vast amounts of data to shape our understanding and providing new tools and indicators to assess ecosystem changes. A large network of research institutions are collaborating to apply this holistic system approach to different regions in the Atlantic Ocean. Through dialogue with stakeholders, results are discussed with this holistic, integrated approach, deciphering the trade-offs occurring when managing our ocean commons to ensure a sustainable future of the Atlantic Ocean. Mission Atlantic, to understand the ocean we need for the future we want.
Thank you. So, So, as was said, this is 33 partners in 14 countries. It's more than 11 million of euros, and we had 7 case studies. As you can see, we'll talk about this one. Oh. No, that's difficult to do, huh? The South Brazilian Shelf that was coordinated by myself and Mary Gazala that's sitting here with all the other partners. We were 2 universities, 1 research institute. So the top ones is myself and my colleague Sergio from Federal University of Santa Catarina. And at the bottom we have Mary Gazala and Lauren Green from IAPE. And Mary Gazala is from the University of São Paulo. So that's our study area that goes from Rio de Janeiro to the border with Uruguay. So that's one of the results of this case study. So we have the scoping part of it, so where we discuss the drivers, pressure, and impacts. So that was discussed among us. It was a big team, and we presented to stakeholders, we validated, and we discussed about these results having as main drivers fishing, the lack of wastewater treatment, land-based industry, and coastal infrastructure, and have as pressures, litter, species extraction, incidental loss, and contaminants. And all these impacts in different fauna and habitats, fauna groups and habitats. So that was applied later to one of the states of this big area of the southern Brazilian shelf. And then here, and it was the impacts were mapped, thing that we didn't do in here. We did in a more smaller, not that small, but a smaller scale of one state of Brazil. So here you have the areas with more impact of this state. And that was also validated with the manager of this state. That was a really good result too. We start mapping the benthic habitats for our case study. And then when we decide we are able to do that for the whole Brazil, that's available in the SeaSketch platform to anyone that wants to have a look. And now we are refining it together with the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. And it will be based, and it is already based for our MSP process and Marine Protected Areas process. Here's another example of downscaling it, dealing with land and sea interactions. So you have the use of pesticides in the catchment basin in our area, and then we have in the right side the points with more interaction of this pollution. So it's a really good example that we can inform integrated coastal zone management, for instance. Now we have the STRAT-E2E model, and that is an interdisciplinary ecosystem model. What I want to show you is that through this model that made most for the University of São Paulo, with the contribution of everybody, we have these future trends of biomass due to climate change. For instance, was one of the modeling that we did. And we can see that it projects declines overall of all these species and fauna that we are modeling. We also have some another papers that also at our scale sends showing temporal change analysis in a Southwest Atlantic transition zone. Also here showing that climate change reduces pelagic biomass. So there are all results for this project, Mission Atlantic, that the idea is to inform. We had, that we presented at, for Minister of Environment, Minister of Science, Technology, Minister of Fisheries, our IBAMA, that's our EPA, Environment Protection Authority. We present the results in a workshop in Brasilia, and I mean, gave them all the data. And so we have 94 peer-reviewed publications, 20 mobility fellowships, 1 e-learning course on integrated ecosystem assessment that is available to anyone. And we have 14 impact narratives, 2 of them coming from Brazil. One is that bent habitat mapping that we showed that's informing marine spatial planning and marine protected areas in Brazil. And the other one was the first scoping that I showed you that really shows the impacts pressures. That was the first basis for us to start marine spatial planning in the south part of Brazil as a pilot project. So that's it. Thank you. Muito obrigada.
Wow, thank you and congratulations, Marinese, and everybody that's part of this amazing project. So let's go. Now we're going to talk about money. But first I have one warning. Someone forgot a cell phone at the ladies' bathroom, I guess. It's in the front desk if you look for it. Okay, so let's talk about money, but not the old money. Let's talk about the blue money. How do we build ocean economies that don't eat their own tail? So let's talk about circular, sustainable, and crucially, inclusive economy. So to guide us, I'm thrilled to welcome moderator who literally teaches this at Brazil's Navy War College, Professor Tawan Santos. Please, Tawan, come here and show us how to make profit without costing the planet.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the organizers for the invitation to be part of this panel and to moderate this. And as a professor of blue economy at the Brazilian Naval War College, which is the high-level school of the Brazilian Navy, it's an honor for me to be here and share some thoughts on this question and all this information regarding sustainable ocean economy and also blue economy. So to set the stage, discussions so far have highlighted that the ocean economy is key to sustainable development, at the same time that it also involves complex and sometimes competing priorities, such as environmental protection, economic growth, social inclusion, and also maritime security. However, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Different regions, contexts, and governance capacities require tailored approaches from MSP to ABNJ. So addressing these challenges require overcoming financial barriers, mobilizing investments, and strengthening international cooperation. At the end of the day, advancing circular, sustainable, and inclusive ocean economies depend on a couple of mixed things, such as integrating scientific knowledge, nature-based solutions, and ocean-related innovations, while also valuing and considering local and indigenous knowledge. I would stress that participation is key, it is essential, especially given the asymmetries in power, capacities, and resources among Atlantic countries to ensure equitable and truly sustainable outcomes. So I'm going to briefly introduce our distinguished guests and panelists and invite them to join me at the stage, as I call them. First of all, Nicole Duplessis. She is a science officer at the National Research Foundation, South African Environmental Preservation Network, where she leads strategic ocean science initiatives at both national and international levels, with over a decade of experience in research. Welcome. And with stakeholder engagement, policy support, she plays a key role in shaping collaborative programs that bridge scientific knowledge and social-related benefits. And Alan Hain, General Secretary of ICES, the International Council for the Exploration of the Sea, an intergovernmental organization based in Copenhagen, Denmark. As a General Secretary, Alan is building a more inclusive and interdisciplinary organization. As the ICES Secretariat support a scientific community of more than 5,000 scientists providing knowledge, data, and advice. Please come. Well, with all these interconnected things that I have just mentioned in mind, I'd like to address the first question to Nicole. I'm going to sit with them. Well, Nicole, the first question is addressing for you, and it's basically, how can the ocean observation and data infrastructure support the transition to sustainable ocean economies, particularly in the context where economic development, pressures, and environmental sustainability imperatives exist in tension?
Hi, everyone, and thank you for that question. I think a lot of this has actually been said over this past week, and hopefully I can connect the dots on this, because I've been thinking about the question, and I think it's really has probably been addressed. So I'm going to focus a little bit on South Africa as maybe a little bit of a case study, but I think that this is applicable to other AAORIA partners. So just as a little bit of background and context, South Africa's ocean economy contributes about $8 billion to GDP and supports about 500,000 jobs. And this is primarily in what is called the mature sectors, so offshore fisheries, some aquaculture species, maritime transport, and coastal tourism. And as a national institute, our research and infrastructure needs to contribute to all those sectors as well as the emerging ones. And our mandate is nationally defined, so we do need to contribute to economic development, job creation, and poverty alleviation, which is maybe a little bit much to ask of a scientist or field technician. But at the same time, we're a mega diverse nation with extraordinary marine biodiversity, but much of it is poorly understood, particularly in our deep oceans. But we do have marine protected area targets to meet ongoing biodiversity and ecosystem classification reporting, and climate change is already affecting our coastal communities. So there is a balance that needs to be had between economic development and environmental sustainability, which is the case for most nations. But for us, this is trying to do this with very limited offshore data. And what this means practically is trying to plan offshore development when we don't know what's in most of our EEZ, It's trying to design marine protected areas with patchy data, and trying to decide where industry can operate without damaging our critical habitats or knowing the trade-offs that we need to make when we haven't fully mapped those habitats yet. And so this is where ocean observation infrastructure becomes not scientifically valuable, but economically and politically essential. You can't have a truly sustainable ocean economy with operating on partial information. You end up either being so precautionary that you block development entirely, which can be politically untenable, or you approve activities in areas that turn out to be ecologically or socially critical. And that then can end up undermining sustainability, or you end up expending time and resources in litigation, which has happened in South Africa. So what SEANA and our partners have been working towards is strengthening the observation capacity that allows for informed decision-making. And whether that is making a push for growing our deep sea capacity or taking advantage of advances in cost-effective equipment and sensor development, as has been discussed throughout this week. But there's another dimension to this which doesn't get discussed enough, and I think that we can start having this conversation within AAORIA, and that is to start thinking about ocean observations or marine research as a sector that has diverse value chains. So not just the scientific infrastructure, but as circular value chains that span from conception and production of observation technologies, the deployment of data generation, the data products and user needs, to the end-of-life management and waste reduction. So right now, most African nations are consumers of ocean observation technology that is designed, manufactured, and maintained elsewhere. We buy sensors, we competitively apply for vessel time when we import or buy software platforms. But as global demand for ocean data grows with climate monitoring needs, disaster risk and planning needs, marine spatial planning needs, there's more opportunity for ocean science businesses. And so I think as South Africa, we can start seeing the entire African continent as a market to start with. But more broadly, this also means that we need to think about the full life cycle. So we are here in this amazing facility. So how do we get our best minds interested to work on ocean solutions and see this as a viable business opportunity? And I think being here, it's kind of really inspirational to see how the engineering is linking to the ocean science. But then how do we also design observation systems to be maintained locally, rather than requiring expensive international technical support? And how do we sustain or grow the funding needed for ocean science? But what is critical as well, and where I think the inclusive piece of the inclusive ocean economies comes in, is that ocean observation infrastructure has to be nationally housed, nationally led, and nationally accessible. And this is where national research institutions become so important as anchor points for partnerships and institutionalizing the knowledge gained from our partners. Because it's not just about getting equipment and generating data. It's about building the capacity to generate, interpret, and apply that data to our own priorities. And increasingly, it's about recognizing that ocean observation represents economic value beyond the data that is produced. There's value in the technologies themselves, in the services required to deploy and maintain them, in the expertise needed to process and interpret what they collect, and in the data products needed by industry and the public. And so we just need to close the circle really by better communicating that economic and social development and environmental sustainability are not in conflict but supportive. And in South Africa, our universities and research institutions have technology transfer and IP support divisions, but this does need to become more visible to ensure that ocean technology is prioritized alongside things like medical and space innovations that have really clear and defined value chains already. So we can see more ocean startups and businesses being launched, and then people will see why investing in their ocean infrastructure is as important as supporting, let's say, coastal and port infrastructure, and it is a public service. And this is where I think ocean literacy and science communication become key enablers of ocean science and is another sector in the value chain. And so this is why I think also having platforms like AAORIA is incredibly important. We can bring our early career professionals here to learn from, be inspired, share their experiences with our Atlantic partners, grow their professional network, share what they've learned with their networks back home, and I think hopefully create their own products and applications as we have seen this week. I'm very keen to see if some of this is really taken forward. So we do have challenges and limitations, but I do think that we've built momentum towards a place where we can say we are making the best decisions with the best available science. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Well, you have mentioned a couple of keywords that we could stay like longer hours here discussing, like capacity, ocean infrastructure, funding, data, circular approach, technology transfer, and mention as well like challenges and limitations. So this all connects with the sustainable and inclusive and circular ocean economy. And this is all about blue economy at the end of the day. Like we have too many things to address at the same time. And conference and discussions like this, it helps us like navigating this tough issue. So well, now moving to Alan. I'd like to pose one short, but I would say not that easy question for you, Alan. In our changing world, how can science best support ocean economies?
Thank you very much, Tuan. Thank you, Nicole. Muito obrigado. Bom dia, everyone. It's really wonderful to be here. Thanks so much to our hosts. When I was an early career scientist, I was studying these questions. I was looking at small development projects in the Amazon in Pará and in the Western Amazon in Acre. And it was really my first big research experience. And I was struggling with these questions, really. How do we have sustainable and inclusive economics that really benefit everyone? And I was going around and looking at different alternative projects in the Amazon and just talking to people and trying to understand what their experience was and seeing them as the experts of what they knew. And it really became clear in that process, both the value of technology and knowledge, and then the value of people, of training people, have the expertise and understanding of where they are, and leadership. That was really important. So it's been a great couple of days, and I mean from the beginning with Secretary Andrea and James and Anjali and everyone in the first session talking about all the value that science is bringing to our economies and the ocean economy's contributions to our society. And I think we've talked about the way that we're using technology in lots of ways. Before the forum started, the earlier career, the intergenerational hackathon, really nicely, amazing. Thank you, to everyone. It was really a pleasure to see you present this, just incredible way that you pulled ideas together and produced outcomes. And so I think we've covered the basis really of this idea of we're doing this, we're working together, the importance of people. But I want to really share 5 lessons that I've learned that started really here in Brazil in the Amazon, and then I worked for a long time in the North Pacific. And now I work at ICES, based in Denmark, but we work with partners all around the world, people from more than 70 countries, with member countries, throughout Europe and in North America. And so this is interactive, so get ready. There's no formal test, but there'll be a little bit of a test where you get to join along. So I was inspired last night and thought about trying to put this to samba. But I decided I wasn't quite up for that, and I wasn't sure we had enough space. So instead, this is all you need is one of your hands to do this. So I'm going to say 1, 2, skip the middle finger, 3, point to my 4th finger, the ring finger, and the 5th finger. Okay, so here are 5 lessons that I want to share that really are about key elements of beyond the big picture things that we understand, the value of data, technology, people, all the things that we're working together on. All right, so number 1, you're doing a great job. Communicate, 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 right? It's so crucial that, and a number of you have talked about this, of understanding who is your audience. We do this as scientists. We're guilty of getting excited about the things that we're excited about and not paying attention enough to the message being delivered. And this is really important in the inclusion sense, also of recognizing that we need to talk to everyone. We need to talk to the people who are using this information. We need to understand their experience. And in the ICES context, a big thing that we do is we provide advice to policymakers so that we synthesize and translate the advice into a format that's useful to answer the questions that policymakers need. All right, focus, focus, focus is my second point. Is that, we talked a lot, we have talked about the vastness of the interconnections of our ocean, of our one ocean, the Arctic connection to the Antarctic and the coastal to the deep ocean. All of these are true, but one thing that we really need to do is to be able to take this down to a scale that we as individuals can focus on and that we can communicate about this. And this is actually a good thing in a fisheries context of there's an answer that you're trying to produce. How much fish can you sustainably catch as you understand this fish stock and its relationship to the ecosystem? And the more that we can take these pieces of this complex story of our one ocean and our society and bring that down into one bit, the better. All right, be dynamic. Say no to things that aren't working anymore and have some means as we're going through. We see this as we're developing as a community. We have new ideas and processes. And we need to have a churn, and this is a core idea of economics, right? Of like things constantly moving on to new ideas, and we see that with new technologies. In the ICES context, so Tawana introduced, so we have 5,000 scientists who work in 150 groups that come from from all over the world, from you all or members of these groups, and we have the committees and our science committee and advisory committee that then are giving guidance from the national priorities into the system. But there's also a bottom-up dynamic where early career scientists, experts in every field, are contributing new ideas to what these groups should do. And that dynamism of having that constant ability to say, right, this is no longer needed, this is the priority of today, that's a really critical element. All right, the fourth, I'm not wearing a ring, although I'm happily married. I'm pointing to my ring finger, that sense of commitment and that comes with wearing the ring in your ring finger. Long-term relationships are really crucial to doing great science and being able to translate that into effective policy. And that's something that I've experienced throughout my career when I worked for NOAA in the North Pacific. And there was a fishery management council system there where the managers and the scientists would meet together 5 times a year and talk about issues. And this dialogue, you had a constant ability to understand each other's priorities, to develop trust, and then for scientists to present something for the managers to say, that's a crazy idea, I don't understand that, go back and start over, and then to do that again. And I think that this is something that, we're doing some of this here, right? We're having these annual meetings, but I think that this is a crucial thing for us to do, of having these types of interfaces where we're talking together informally and really, and this comes back to the communication so that we're taking this information and packaging it to the right audiences. And then last but emphatically not least, recognize that stakeholders and social science are a crucial part of this picture. And I'm an economist as a researcher, I have been, and an interdisciplinary scientist, and there are a lot of times where that was an afterthought, where that wasn't something that came in the beginning. It was something like, we need to think about this now. And we really need to think about that in an integrated way. And it's the same with stakeholders and local knowledge, traditional knowledge, and indigenous knowledge. We need to understand from the beginning the way that we put these pieces together. And another crucial element of that is recognizing that this came up in the first day. We were talking about the way that technology allows you to catch fish better. And of course, that's in an overfishing context and you're not managing fishing, that's a concern. You may end up harming the things you're trying to protect. But recognize that you can use management so that technology leads to great benefits for coastal communities. And it's that coupling of good management and good technology that gives us the greatest benefits. But we really have to use social science as part of that process to focus on governance to create better governance. So, all right, here's the interactive part. You get to do it too. All right, you ready? Number 1, communicate. All right, all right. Focus, focus, focus. Be dynamic. All All right, work on those relationships. If you're married, if you want to get married, you get married. If you don't, that's okay too. But think about long-term relationships. And last but not least, social science and stakeholders. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. As an economist as well, a professor of economics, I couldn't agree more that when it comes to discussions on ocean and ocean sciences, we economists usually are like ahead of discussions. So yeah, we do have to take part of that, but providing new approaches, I would say, like changing our mindsets and not bringing like old-fashioned solutions. I couldn't agree more with you. Scale up in ocean-based industries is key sometimes, and depending on the country or the region, it's key. And I'm gonna take advantage of one mention you did in the speech, connecting to samba. As a Brazilian, of course, I know how to samba. And samba might be really hard for people and looks really hard for you to follow the moves, but it's all about connecting stuff. Like you have to move different members at a time. And I think that blue economy and providing a circular, inclusive, and sustainable ocean economy is all about that. You have to manage science, technology, participation, inclusion. You have to manage different discussions way ahead of economics itself in order for you to provide a flowly move that samba is all about. So I think that connection could be like weird. I never thought about that before, but I'm taking advantage of your mention to make sure that here in the Northeast Brazil, we have some thoughts based on culture and local knowledge. Well, I think we have some minutes left. So I'm gonna bring you one extra question that was not combined, but yeah, let's take advantage of the time. And if we bring together science, governance, finance, and local knowledge, I'd like to know what is only one, critical shift we must make now to ensure that the blue economy becomes truly sustainable, inclusive, and equitable across different countries in the Atlantic. I know it's a tough question, but you have a couple of minutes to elaborate better. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think that it has been really said already. I think the communication is completely critical to this. It's really understanding the why of what we are trying to do as ocean scientists, as economists. It's really to know that we want to move forward to a place where everyone has what they need. To move from a place where it is not from survival to being able to thrive in our communities, in our cities, in our countries. And I think that we have built an incredible platform here for communication. And I think if we keep doing that, then certainly when we get to the UN 2030, where we have so many commitments and things that we have promised ourselves and everyone else, that we can certainly reach quite a lot of those. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, I'm going to say something that isn't in the short list that I think we would most put there, which is focus on innovation and governance. Because I think, I agree with the value of communication, but to me, I think that that's something where we can get the most out of this, of recognizing that we can, there's some governance changes you can make, and different places have different systems that are working really, really well. I mean, South Africa, there's some fisheries that are extremely well managed. There are things that can be taken from that context, and I think that's something in our AAORIA world where we can really learn from each other. And I think that's something in the ICES context. That's what we do. Is for 125 years we've been working on this, of recognizing, okay, we can work together to manage transboundary resources. And I think that that's what we need to do, keep working hard on.
Yeah, 100% agree with you too. Well, I think we are running out of time and Barbara is approaching, which means that we are actually running out of time. I'd like to thank you guys for the reflections on the blue economy, and I pass the word back to Barbara. Thank you so much.
Guys, okay. Sorry to be the one to to be here and say We are running out of time. But anyways, now let's move from economy to emergency. Coastal resilience is where the waves hit the shore, literally. So I'm happy to invite here Mr. James Morrison. He's the director of the Healthy Planet Directorate of the European Commission's Directorate General for Research and Innovation, and also Deputy Mission Manager of the European Union Mission Restore Our Ocean and Waters. Please, Mr. James, come here and let's join us for this next session.
Great. Well, it's great to be back on a subject that I care about so much, as you know. And it's also great to be standing here because occasionally you get sharks behind you and somebody takes a picture and it looks like you're in one of those early 60s Bond movies, but you know. And there've been some very tough acts to follow in terms of moderation and, you know, the last session and Steve, who of course missed his vocation as a chat show host. And so I'll try and keep this session moving because I'm conscious that this is probably the last session before lunch, which is always a tough gig. So many of you had an opportunity at the workshop on Tuesday. I had written down that it was yesterday, but you know, time is a different concept in Salvador, I think, to exchange views on experiences on how best to ensure resilience and the resilience of Atlantic coastal communities to the increasingly serious climate risks they face. And don't worry, Anjali, I'm not going to mention Slapton Line in South Devon as a perfect pilot for this. Oh, I just have. So these conversations highlight just how important it is to learn from one another. And that's where initiatives like the All Atlantic Network of Coastal Resilience beacon sites come in. The Beacon Sites Network is there to amplify the voices of locally managed Atlantic sites and their communities and to support their ability to adapt to future coastal challenges. So, and I'm also very pleased that this event offers the opportunity to learn from some of Brazil's experience because Brazil has nearly 7,500 kilometers of coastline, which is a fact that's going to come in very handy in a sort of trivia quiz at some point in the future. And there is an awful lot of resilience efforts, as we've seen in previous speakers' presentations. So the idea today, building on the collective expertise across this network, is to reflect a little bit on the future direction and priorities of the Beacon Sites Network and how we can work together to strengthen the resilience of our coastal communities. So with that in mind, the first speaker is Dr. Martin Zimmer, and he's going to tell us more about the progress made by the Beacon Sites Network and provide the feedback from yesterday's workshop. Martin's based in Germany, although obviously he's here today, at the Leibniz Center for Tropical Marine Research, and also as professor for mangrove ecology at the University of Bremen. I never knew there were any mangroves in Bremen, but there we go. He serves as scientific coordinator of the All Atlantic Coastal Resilience Beacon Sites Network, and therefore I'd like very much you to give him a warm welcome and to give him the floor.
Thank you, James, for this introduction. Good morning, everybody. So we heard a lot and we talked a lot about coastal resilience and the All-Atlantic Network of Coastal Resilience Beacon Sites over the last couple of days. And within the next couple minutes, I want to take the chance to update you a bit about our progress and bring you up to speed about the latest developments in this network, before we will then learn about some perspectives from Beacon Sites actors. So after we had kicked off the idea in 2024 in Ottawa, we had managed to gather 16 sites across the Atlantic to start exchanging about their approaches to coastal resilience before the Brussels Forum. Since the official launch of the network then in Brussels last year, a lot happened, and I want to walk you through some figures that I was expecting there on the screen, but anyway, if they're not there, I can still walk you through. In just 7 months since the Brussels Forum, the Beacon Sites network grew to 28 sites from 19 countries all across the Atlantic Oceans, from east to west, from north to south. That's a growth by more than 40% in 7 months. And yesterday, actually, we were approached by another 3 potential future beacon sites. And we are more than happy to integrate them in our network and to engage with them very closely, because that's the basic idea. In the past 18 months since the Ottawa Forum, we have hosted 10 events, 3 of them in person. And with these events and workshops, we directly engaged over 600 stakeholders, exchanging perspectives on local pressures, on challenges, and on how to tackle and counteract these challenges, sharing good practices and success stories, and most importantly, also sharing stories about failures. We often learn the most from the experience of what did not work. And one of the features of this network, and we are very happy about that, is the trust, the deep trust among the partners that makes them willing to share their failures, so others won't make the same mistake again. Beyond the exchange with our Beacon Sites partners, we communicated the network and its aims and goals with more than 1,000 participants of international conferences and fora. Our online platform, and a great thank you to Jonathan and Victoria for that, the Coastal Resilience Hub for Knowledge Exchange and Capacity Sharing received more than 7,000 site visits. That is more than 150 per week. I find that quite amazing, and the number is growing as we speak. Well, while all this sounds rather theoretical, it is real and tangible. The All-Atlantic Network of Coastal Resilience Beacon Sites is not a network that only exists on paper. It facilitates real dialogue between people facing similar challenges across the Atlantic Ocean in very different environmental and societal settings. From the mangrove forests in Brazil to tidal mudflats in Germany, and anything that you can imagine in between. We do believe that this initiative developed into a flagship of AAORIA. And if I may refer to yesterday's intervention by Odur Gunnarsson and what he requested from AAORIA Actions, we are doing this. We are doing all this with the Beacons Network. So I think this is something that is really happening, and it's not just a theory or idea. Our side event on Tuesday showcased these real-world actions. Our workshop, From Local to Global, Sharing Knowledge and Experience, enabled us to learn from partners along the South American Atlantic coast, not only Brazil, but mostly Brazil. And I want to share my personal highlights that I took from this exchange. So coastal communities increasingly feel the pressures and need to foster their resilience now. There are different ways of losses and damages that these communities encounter, not only physical, but also moral, psychological, institutional, and the loss of dignity. Vulnerability of both ecosystems and communities must be thought together, but are the scales of ecological and societal resilience the same? And how are they related? Actions on coastal resilience must encompass causes and consequences of environmental and anthropogenic pressures. And international collaboration is essential here. We need knowledge exchange across borders, sectors, and disciplines. Solutions must be scalable, adaptable, and grounded in science, but we often observe limited trust of local actors in science. Solutions require diverse voices and experiences, and we need to more honestly and more sincerely involve and engage with local actors and their perspectives and their different types of knowledge, not just as a lip service, but really doing it. And I refer you here to the Coastal Resilience Hackathon, about which you will hear more in, I think, early this afternoon. So we need to align, we urgently need to align science, policy, and innovation with the views of local communities. But traditional knowledge is being eroded, and we are losing it. And let me close my summary of this workshop with I would say one core insight. We must enable coastal communities to shape their own future. As a fisherwoman from nearby Salvador, who to our great pleasure joined the workshop unexpectedly, coined it, and I quote, "Nothing about us without us." Thank you, and let's make some waves.
Thanks, Martin. Surely let's dissipate some waves. So I'm pleased to welcome our next speaker, who is Dr. Carolina Facina, who's a marine biologist who works at the Santos Technology Park, Brazil. And Carolina has worked phasing out plastics as well as projects connecting innovation, climate justice, and gender equality. So I look forward to hearing her perspective on coastal resilience.
So good morning at all, because we didn't have lunch. So thank you for the invitation. I'll take this opportunity to talk about my locally institution, where we are open doors there. So this is a building with a mission to promote science, technology, and innovation and entrepreneurship. And by the first time I stepped there, I found that my personal mission was to rescue science as the foundations, as the Western foundation of innovation and entrepreneurship. I used to joke that 2 years ago, we were 7 floors and 7 employees. So I think it was the low density of a workplace I have ever been. And also in a city that is one of the most populated, densely populated region of the Brazil and of the Latin America. So that was the challenge. We were buying chairs, tables, breaking down the walls to host you, to receive research and entrepreneurs there. In these 2 last years, also the light rail tests started operating. So it has been very inspiring to participate of the foundation of this institution of science technology. But it's worth mentioning that Innovation Hub, it's more than a building. It's also policies, and it's also a district. So the Innovation Hub encompasses all these 11 neighborhoods of Santos. They are historical, social, vulnerable neighborhoods, just aside the biggest port of Latin America. So that's our challenge. We started a policy package that encompasses tax breaks, tax incentives, and also we are reactivating our council to guide us for what kind of innovation we want. So then I have to make a step back and make a break, a reflexive thinking here. What is innovation? Because we used to think innovation in economic terms. That's the mainstream, huh? So for a blank page here, what are innovation in your workplace? What is innovation in your workplace? So to put it simple, I like to think that innovation is doing something new from wherever you are. But Carol, this panel is about resilience. Okay, so resilience is keep doing something new wherever you are. So 2 years later, I strive to keep pursuing doing things new there. And then we start. We have our first project approved. Thank you for the Brazilian Science Ministry for that. We also have hosting our first events. These are some examples of them. So you see, the density is coming up. And also, we dedicated the first 2 floors of the building for institution that is The mission is the formation of the new generation, so it's training and education. And also we are hosting our first startups. And I choose these ones because the predominance of colors blue and green is not without a purpose. I like to take a look at this photo because these are the public universities around us and some public agencies, the Metropolitan Region, Baixada Santista Metropolitan Region Agency, and also the Port Authority of Santos that are partnering with us. But what I want to emphasize in this photo is that the predominance of blue and green. So we have to keep in mind that we are a technology park at a coastal area and in an island. So we are, where we start is we are a stewarding island. We have to keep that in mind. Because we face things like this. So I'm here to present our technology park and our islands to call you all, researchers, policymakers, entrepreneurs here, that if your project, your research, your networks reflects new ways of doing things, and what I mean by things is sea level rise and coastal resilience projects, urban planning dedicated to blue and green infrastructure, local food systems and slow food movements, and also inclusion and sharing knowledge. Santos needs your pilots, and I'll be very pleased to welcome you at the Santos Technology Park. Thank you.
You don't get away that easily. Thank you, Carolina. As Martin highlighted, the Beacon Sites Network brings together people facing similar challenges with very different ecosystems and very different contexts. And that creates the sort of exchange, the space for exchange, which is quite unique and for learning. So we're now going to have 4 speakers, one of whom is here, who will talk about the key challenges and solutions in terms of strengthening coastal resilience. And the things I think we need to sort of think about are the technical, financial, and institutional barriers to coastal resilience, to discuss how best to integrate scientific and local knowledge, to explore the Beacon Sites network in addressing those challenges, and it would be quite nice if we offered some recommendations for action as well. So, joining Carolina, firstly, I'd like to welcome Max Grunig. When I first saw this, I thought, wow, it's the guy who created The Simpsons, but it's not. He's probably more important. He's the adjunct professor at Georgetown University and co-founder of the Pocacito Network with extensive experience in climate policy, urban resilience, nature-based solutions, and international cooperation and learning. And Max represents the Beacon site at Camp Wilkes in Biloxi, Mississippi, USA. So welcome. And then, wherever you like. And then I'd also like to welcome Marco Tosic, who represents, I love these acronyms, AAORIA of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, where he serves as head of the UN Ocean Decade Coordination Office for the Tropical Americas and the Caribbean. So welcome. And then last but by no means least, the person you saw dancing on stage yesterday, Eleonora Veron, a researcher at CONICET and the National University of Mar del Plata in Argentina, working on coastal resilience through co-design approaches, coastal management, and Marine and Spatial Planning, and Eleonora represents the beacon site at Mar Chiquita in Argentina. Yeah. I think I'm going to stand up here and ask the questions. What do you think? Why not? So great. So I'm going to ask the first question to Eleonora, if that's okay. And the question is, what, in your view, is the most pressing coastal resilience challenge in your specific context today? And what makes it so difficult? Is it technical, financial, or institutional constraints, or a wonderful combination of all of them? Try again.
Here, yes.
Perfect.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not dancing now.
Maybe later.
Well, I'm from Mar Chiquita, beacon site. That is a coastal lagoon in Argentina, Buenos Aires province. It's a beautiful place, and it's a coastal system, very complex, because we have different ecosystems, a huge biodiversity, and for that, in the area, we have different human pressures for uses and activities, and urban development, fisheries, tourism, agriculture, and they have many actors with different interests. And we have different challenges to afford from scientists and from managers, and from local communities. And I think we have worked together for the coastal resilience in my beacon site. And I think the knowledge doesn't flow itself in any direction, and the principal challenge from a scientific perspective is working by a transdisciplinary approach, because that is essential, that different disciplines working together both to understand the complex system, like a coast, like a Mar Chiquita. And because when problems are complex, values are in dispute, and decisions cannot wait, like said Martin, and like we saw in the side event and these days, traditional science is not enough. And we need to expand to produce knowledge, and there is co-creation with communities matters. And I think it's the principal challenge when we affront like scientists in our institution, how we connect really with the communities, how we work together, all together for find the coastal resilience in my area.
Okay, great. Now, I think there's some very interesting issues there, and they came out of the workshop as well, that you can have the most brilliant scientific analysis, and it's fantastic, but it just doesn't connect. And there's an immediacy for people in the communities, and there are different sort of drivers in play. And making that connection and making a solution not only seem possible to people who often think it's just going to happen, there's nothing you can do about it, and actually in their beneficial interest to get them behind it, I think it's a real challenge. And to find the way of sort of framing it in a simple and sort of logical way that actually relates to their experience or their historic experience and their knowledge, I think is the key to turning, great theory into some sort of action on this. Would anybody else like to sort of say something on that question? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be partly unique to, of course, a high-income country environment, so it might be a bit different. But in our situation, and that's not unique to Mississippi, that's maybe more generally along the Gulf and other coasts in the US, but competing uses are I think, a main challenge. Of course, where we are, I mean, oil and gas is, of course, a main competitor, also tourism. And then, of course, what's behind that is also the ownership question. So private ownership, especially of direct coastal land, is a major barrier because we cannot force people to do a lot of things. It also creates another big challenge, which is that it's considered, and also often is, very inequal in the sense that very high wealth properties are affected first and benefit first from successful coastal protection, which makes this also a distributional question. So this makes us even more challenging, meaning certain populations being transient or renters or low income feel that's not an issue that they want to engage in. And so this might be different in a different country, but this is definitely a high barrier we face and that we are just processing. We haven't solved that yet.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's, I mean, it's very interesting because coastal areas often are the most contested in terms of, you know, potential uses and people who have a stake in that. And yeah, trying to align those interests is quite important in finding a sustainable solution to things. I mean, at the end of the day, if everything disappears, everybody loses. But you're right, there are different sort of time perspectives and there are different levels of sort of financial engagement and risk at play in the whole thing. Okay, shall we move on to the second question, which I'm going to ask Marco, which is how can we ensure that knowledge flows both to and from communities so that both science and local experience inform decision-making?
Great. Well, I think one of the ways that we can ensure two-way flow is through capacity building activities. So in training activities, it's a great opportunity to bring people together. And traditionally, that would be done with someone from, let's say, the research or academic sector teaching all those that are at the training session. But it's really important that these sessions involve spaces where the communities can also contribute their knowledge so that it becomes a two-way flow and not just a one-way flow. Another important factor there is to really involve different sectors in those training sessions so that it's really an opportunity to bring together government representatives, private sector representatives, academia, and communities. On the one hand, it allows them to generate dialogue between each other, which they may not always have the opportunity to do so. And on the other hand, it also allows the establishment of common knowledge on the subject of the training. That's really important when eventually those same actors are coming to a governance meeting or decision-making meeting, that they all come with the same information and they feel comfortable to discuss without one feeling that they have less knowledge than the other.
Yeah. Yes. I think that information asymmetry is quite an important point. Carolina?
Okay. I'll be more illustrated, okay? Remember that we met at the elevator? Yeah? we were kind of lost, trying to find you were trying to find the first floor, and I thought I was finding the second floor, you know. We are lost. And then we met at the elevator, and then we run around, and then we meet again at the elevator. And then you told me, you need to push that button to the first floor, and I'll go to the second floor. And the second time it was really clear for both of us. So I think this two-way information and acknowledge shares, keep to be here and meeting again. So I think the second time we do better.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the third question. I'm going to ask Max. What, in your view, is the main barrier to strengthening coastal resilience in your experience? I know you've touched on this already a little bit. And how can the international network, like coastal beacon sites, help overcome these, do you think?
Yeah, I did touch on the first one, the barriers. So definitely reaching populations, reaching the different stakeholder groups and people who think they are not having a voice in the matter. That is a big challenge, and it's coming back to one question also that's been mentioned a couple of times today and yesterday, trust. So developing trust, and that also comes back to repetitive engagement and being there and engaging. So that's definitely an important part. Now you mentioned the international aspect. So there, of course, I think probably a lot of people in the room can identify one barrier there is, of course, lack of time, capacity, other commitments, and then, of course, financing for this international learning process. So I think it's very important to build and offer opportunities. That's why I'm very grateful we can meet here in this forum, and I'm grateful to AAORIA for making this possible. We definitely need more of this, and I think there's a lot to it, that there too, the repetition, the repeated encounter, I think that's very important. Building a community, building relationships, I think that's definitely key.
Great, thank you. Anybody else on that? Or we can move to the last question. Oh, well, go ahead, Eleanor.
So, in addition, in my experience in South America country, I think one important barrier are institutions that work together. They exist, but no, they work disconnected, local, provincial, national, international, maybe. Some territory, different rules, and different timelines. And other important barrier, I think, is discontinuity. Because project ends, teams change, governments change, and resilience take time. You cannot build in 2 or 3 years the conditions. And for that, I think that these networks matter because we challenge to talk honesty about us, compare experience, share the tools and frameworks, not to copy solutions, but not to start from zero. To share what worked and what didn't work, something like this. And they improve our actors together.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask a last question, but I'm going to ask everybody just to say something short, and then I'm going to tell you what I think about it. And so the last question really is, if you were to recommend one concrete action or change that would significantly strengthen coastal resilience, what would it be? So it's one action, could be a very short answer. So start with you, Eleanor.
I think it's a hard question because everything all is connected. But if I have to choose one thing, I think is invest in real process. It's difficult, I know. But it's important where science, government, and community work together. Not formal structure that exists on paper, real process with community people, with continuity beyond on one project on what government. A space where science informs decision, but most important, where the community informs science in both directions, where legitimacy is built throughout the process and not declaring the end.
Okay, Marco?
So I would say that the key is really breaching the science policy gap. And so the action that I would recommend is that
donor agencies need to oblige or continue to oblige research projects to deliver their results to decision makers, and similarly for government projects to incorporate the research sector.
Thank you. Carolina?
Okay, concrete action.
Yeah.
I will not make that by concrete, okay? First of all. And then, okay, I have to speak for that. Gender equity. So, because it's there where we all start, yeah?
Thank you. Max?
I want to make a pitch for experiential learning opportunities. I think when people, I mean, it's very great how we meet here, of course. That's also not diminishing the value of that, but being out and exploring together and seeing things. I mean, this really, in my experience, creates these opportunities for eureka, right? For where people suddenly see something and you wouldn't see it if you just read a paper or if you just see a slide. But if you're there in practice, and then maybe, and you're right, you can't necessarily import or export the solution, but maybe you get still an idea for which part of that you can apply elsewhere. And even if it doesn't always work, you can at least get new inspiration. I think this is very, very valuable. It's a lot of work, of course. Scalability is, it's only the real thing basically matters there. So it's actually the in-person experience. I think I want to pitch that here as a way forward. Also maybe within our network, but also outside of that too.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think we talked, before, a common theme. You can feel isolated if you're in one of these coastal regions threatened, and it's quite good to know that you're not alone. So my one thing would be, we really need to change the sort of mindset, and a mindset that sees this as a cost. It's not a cost, it's an investment. Investing in this avoids cost. And it really does. And you can do lots of benefit cost ratios on it that prove that 8, 9 times. And I think once we change a mindset into that, and we then put the focus on scientific solutions that work with nature, solutions that are therefore sustainable, then we start to sort of change the debate about it, I think. So thank you all. I'm now going to invite Sophie Roy, manager of the All Atlantic Network of Coastal Resilience Beacon Sites, to wrap up and to talk about the next steps.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. So my slides are going to be put up. I'm going to present just one slide about the next step, where we are going and what we have gathered here at the workshop and at the forum as ideas. I'm hoping my slides will come, but I can start talking. So James mentioned it before, so on my slide you can see all the things we have planned, but we are still working and pending approval, the final approval. There is a project that is going to be launched this summer. And this project is strongly inspired and driven by co-design. We want to involve the people a little bit more or even more in the Beacon Site Network. And this new project, it aims to develop coastal, for example, it aims at many things, but one of the things is to develop develop communities' vulnerability similarity platform that we can use to compare what is happening at the different site, but also all around about coastal resilience. You've been coming, and many of you have been joining these events, but we have lots of events and action and products that are being developed in the network. And we aim to increase this number, but also to increase the content that is being created at these meetings. So we do have a lot of workshop and a lot of science policy briefing and expert at conferences. One of the things we are working towards is having the Beacon Site Network becoming a little bit of a knowledge partner. So we have been contacted and we participated in COP30 we were contacted by the German and the French ministry to have an event or a side event where the Beacon Site Network was involved and some of our expert and associated partners were involved. And we are looking into doing that again at the next COP event. We are looking into twinning activities. This is inspired by a German-American cooperation where we are working together and discussing how to go forward with coastal resilience. And we are thinking of twinning this program and taking it forward and maybe doing it with different countries and different partners of the Beacon Site Network. There were also some multiple exchange between South Africa and Spain, and we're really looking into developing this twinning program to other countries. I am not going to read everything, but one thing that we have realized that is very important is going towards will be something, an adaptation action briefs that we could do at each of the Beacon site, where we could really present what is being done and where policy and science could come together. We are also in open discussion to write and develop these briefs at the moment. We are also, as I mentioned, with the new project that is coming, we are looking into publishing practical tools and guidance. We have also been approached for scientific publication to use the Beacon site as case studies for transdisciplinarity. We are looking forward, and this is something that was wished by the community, to do thematic workshops that are going to be co-hosted by local stakeholders, and we have different themes that are being discussed and wished by the community. We are going to expand the network and do all of this work and expand to have more people coming in. And during the forum and the exchanges I had with all of you, many people, we discussed about the importance of the Beacon Site Network. And it was established coming from the area stakeholder that wished to be better connected together to tackle coastal resilience. And I think what Martin said, what James said, what all of you said is very important. And we heard testimony also at the workshop. And while we cannot offer direct solution, we can continue discussing together and bringing this matter into perspective and focus. And I think this is why the All-Atlantic Network of Coastal Resilience Beacon Site is so important. It is because it brings together the stakeholders, the scientists, the decision makers that face similar challenges. And James just said it, and thank you. It's just we are not alone. We are a team and we can do it together. So if you want to learn more about the Coastal Resilience Beacon Site, we have this pitch presentation. Take a picture of the QR code, and you will see that we are showcasing the Beacon Site, what they do, what activity they're doing, the pictures of the people that are on the ground. So please visit and contact us if you want, or if you want to join the network. At the moment here, we have 6 representatives of the Beacon Site Network, which I want to thank. So we have Luciana from Uruguay, we have Eleonora and Herman from Argentina, we have 2 Beacon Sites from Brazil, we have Armin and we have Danielle that are both representing a different section or ecosystem of Brazil. We have Max from the USA, and we also have Marc Olivier from Canada. So if they could stand up so you can see them. And if you have questions and if you want to learn more about the Beacon Site, this is the perfect place to do it. They're here in live, so please don't hesitate. We are also going to meet afterwards where the plants are, so we're always very happy to talk about what we are doing together. And maybe one last thing. So at the workshop, I mentioned what success looks like for us, and I mentioned that we are community-driven, so maybe don't do the slide on now, take a picture and go. And we want to move forwards with the network. And to do this, we need to have your expectations. We need to have your feedback. So, and I just showed some of the results. People are still going into the Slido to put their inputs. But at the moment, the word cloud looks like everything that is about coastal resilience is as important as the other one. So we are really looking forward to tackling this complex challenge together. And thank you. And James, I don't know if you want to say the last word. Okay, well, great. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be here. And I guess I'm going to say, let's go have lunch, everyone, and enjoy the great Brazilian food. Unless Barbara is coming back. Oh, Barbara is coming back.
Thank you, Sophie. You already said. I just need to add, guys, we need to come back at 2 p.m. sharp. So let's enjoy the lunch break.